When we talk about life advice from someone who has reached extraordinary levels of wealth, it's tempting to focus only on numbers, how much they made, how fast they scaled, which strategies they used. But the first and most important lesson most billionaires quietly point to has nothing to do with money itself. It begins much earlier, much deeper. It begins with mastering the self before trying to master the world. You see, wealth is often treated as the destination, but in reality, it is usually a byproduct of discipline, patience, emotional control, and an unshakable sense of purpose. If the inner foundation is weak, no amount of external success will bring peace. Many people chase money thinking it will fix their anxiety, their insecurity, their fear of the future. What often happens instead is that money amplifies what already exists inside. If there is gratitude, it grows. If there is greed, it grows. If there is emptiness, that too becomes louder. A seasoned billionaire once reflected that the most expensive mistakes of his life were not bad investments, but bad decisions made in moments of ego, anger, or impatience. This is where the real lesson lies. Before you ask, how do I grow my income? Ask, how do I grow my character? Because character is what decides how you act when no one is watching, when the pressure is high, and when shortcuts present themselves as opportunities. There is a deep psychological truth here. Human beings are not defeated by lack of talent as much as they are defeated by lack of consistency. Most people know what they should do. Very few do it daily, quietly, without applause. The billionaire mindset is not magical. It is repetitive. It is built on showing up even when motivation is absent, on choosing long-term benefit over short-term comfort. This requires self-command, and self-command requires humility, the humility to accept that you are always a work in progress. From a philosophical perspective, this aligns with an ancient wisdom. If you cannot control your desires, they will control you. Many wealthy individuals admit that their turning point came when they learned to say no to distractions, to unnecessary status games, to impulses that felt good in the moment but cost them later. Saying no is not a limitation. It is a form of freedom. It protects your time, your energy, and your focus. And time, not money, is the most non-renewable resource you have. Another subtle but powerful aspect of this first lesson is responsibility. Successful people stop outsourcing blame. They do not blame the economy, their upbringing, or other people for where they are. This does not mean they deny hardship or injustice. It means they refuse to let those realities define the rest of their lives. Psychologically, this shift is transformative. The moment you accept responsibility, you gain agency. And agency is the starting point of all meaningful change. There is also a spiritual undertone that cannot be ignored. Many wise voices remind us that wealth is a test before it is a reward. How you pursue it, how you earn it, and how you use it all matter. If your values collapse on the way up, success becomes a burden rather than a blessing. That is why so many people who make it still feel restless. They climbed the ladder only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. This is why inner alignment is critical. Ask yourself regularly, why am I doing this? Is it to prove something to others or to fulfill a responsibility I believe in? Is it driven by fear or by service? When your actions align with a deeper purpose, resilience increases. Setbacks no longer feel like the end. They feel like part of the curriculum. Losses become lessons rather than life sentences. One billionaire summarized it beautifully when he said that money taught him he could buy many things, but never peace of mind. Peace came when his daily actions matched his principles. This is not anti-ambition. On the contrary, it refines ambition. It shifts it from blind accumulation to intentional growth. So if there is one foundational insight to carry forward, it is this: work on the inner world with the same seriousness you apply to the outer world. Build habits before chasing rewards. Build integrity before building empires, because when pressure comes, and it always does. Only what is deeply rooted will remain standing. And perhaps this is the reflection to leave with. Success that costs you your values is not success at all, but discipline that shapes your soul will serve you in every season of life. The second lesson that often emerges from the lives of billionaires is deceptively simple, yet profoundly difficult to live by. Learn to think long-term in a world addicted to immediacy. Most people do not fail because they are incapable. They fail because they are impatient. They want results before the process has had time to mature. They want the fruit without nurturing the seed, and in doing so, they abandon paths that could have transformed their lives. Those who build extraordinary outcomes train their minds to delay gratification. Psychologically, this is one of the strongest predictors of success. The ability to tolerate discomfort today for a better tomorrow separates those who remain stuck from those who rise steadily. It's not about suffering for the sake of suffering. It's about choosing meaningful struggle over meaningless ease. Every worthwhile achievement demands a season where effort outweighs reward, where faith in the process must carry you when evidence is still invisible. Many wealthy individuals openly admit that their early years looked unimpressive from the outside. Progress was slow. Recognition was absent. Doubt was constant. But what kept them moving was a clear understanding that compounding works quietly. Just as small habits compound into character, small decisions compound into destiny. Miss this principle, and life feels unfair. Understand it, and life becomes deeply logical. There is also a philosophical depth here worth pausing on. Human beings tend to overestimate what they can achieve in a year and underestimate what they can achieve in a decade. Short-term thinking distorts judgment. It pushes people toward shortcuts, speculative risks, and emotional decisions. Long-term thinking, on the other hand, invites patience, learning, and strategic restraint. It asks a different set of questions. Will this matter in 5 years? Is this aligned with who I am becoming? What is the hidden cost of this immediate pleasure? This mindset requires emotional maturity. When you think long-term, you accept temporary misunderstanding. People may question your choices. They may label you slow, overly cautious, or unrealistic. But those who are building something real are rarely understood in the early stages. Vision often looks like stubbornness until results give it a name. There is a spiritual lesson embedded here as well. Many traditions teach that haste strips actions of blessing. When intentions are rushed, wisdom is bypassed. Long-term thinking slows you down just enough to reflect, to seek counsel, to make decisions from clarity rather than fear. It teaches you to trust timing, not as an excuse for inaction, but as a framework for patience. Billionaires often speak about avoiding decisions driven by market noise or public opinion. They focus instead on fundamentals, values, principles, and systems that endure. This is not limited to business. It applies to relationships, health, and personal growth. A person who invests daily in learning, character, and self-discipline may not see dramatic changes in a month, but in 10 years, the difference becomes undeniable. One of the hardest aspects of long-term thinking is resisting comparison. When you measure your progress against someone else's highlight reel, impatience creeps in. You start questioning your pace, your path, your worth. Long-term thinkers understand that comparison is a thief not just of joy, but of focus. They keep their eyes on their own lane, knowing that sustainable growth looks uneven but remains consistent. There is also courage involved in this approach. Long-term thinking often means making boring decisions. It means choosing reliability over excitement, depth over novelty. In a world that celebrates instant success, choosing patience feels like rebellion. But it is this quiet rebellion that builds resilience. When storms arrive, and they always do, those who plan beyond the moment are not shaken as easily. One billionaire once remarked that the most powerful skill he developed was the ability to sit with uncertainty without panicking. Markets fluctuate, people disappoint, plans fail. Short-term thinkers react emotionally. Long-term thinkers adjust strategically. They understand that uncertainty is not a signal to quit, but an invitation to think more deeply. So the second key insight is this: train your mind to respect time. Allow growth to be gradual. Let learning be continuous. Do not measure your life by immediate applause, but by enduring impact. When you commit to long-term thinking, you stop chasing outcomes and start building foundations. And perhaps this is the reflection to carry with you. Patience is not passive waiting. It is active trust in a process you are committed to honoring, day by day, decision by decision, until the future you once imagined quietly becomes the life you now live. The third lesson, and one that often reshapes everything once it is truly understood, is the discipline of learning from failure without letting it define your identity. Many people fear failure not because it is painful, but because they attach meaning to it. A setback becomes a verdict on their intelligence, their worth, or their future. Those who rise to extraordinary levels learn something very different. Failure is information, not a sentence. If you listen carefully to people who have built lasting success, you'll notice a pattern. Their journeys are not clean upward lines. They are layered with wrong turns, losses, and moments of deep uncertainty. What separates them is not that they avoided failure, but that they studied it honestly. Psychologically, this requires a strong sense of self. When your self-worth is fragile, mistakes feel threatening. When your self-worth is grounded, mistakes become teachers. This is where emotional resilience quietly forms. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" the more useful question becomes, "What is this trying to teach me?" That shift alone transforms suffering into growth. It doesn't remove the pain, but it gives the pain purpose. And pain with purpose is far more bearable than pain without meaning. From a philosophical angle, failure exposes the illusion of control. We like to believe that effort guarantees outcome, but life is more complex than that. Timing, people, and circumstances all play roles beyond our command. Accepting this reality is not defeatist, it is liberating. It frees you from arrogance when things go well and from despair when they don't. You learn to focus on what you can control: your effort, your ethics, your response. Billionaires often speak about their worst decisions with surprising calm. Not because they were unaffected, but because those moments refined their judgment. A bad investment sharpens discernment. A failed partnership clarifies values. A public mistake builds humility. Each loss, when processed correctly, becomes a form of tuition paid to life. The tragedy is not paying the price. The tragedy is paying it and learning nothing. There is also a deeply human lesson here about courage. After failure, the instinct is to retreat, to protect the ego by lowering expectations or quitting entirely. But growth requires re-entry. It requires the willingness to step back into uncertainty with better awareness, not bitter cynicism. This takes faith in your capacity to adapt, and faith that your story is not finished yet. Spiritually, many traditions teach that hardship is not sent to break you, but to reveal you. When things fall apart, what remains is what was real to begin with. Failure strips away illusions and forces honesty. It shows you which motivations were pure and which were driven by ego or fear. In this sense, failure becomes a mirror, and mirrors, though uncomfortable, are invaluable. Another critical element is detachment. Long-term success demands that you separate who you are from what you do. If your identity is entirely wrapped in outcomes, every setback becomes personal. But when you see your work as an expression of effort rather than a measure of worth, you gain flexibility. You can change strategies without feeling like you are betraying yourself. Many people never recover from early failures because they rush to interpret them. They draw conclusions too quickly. "I'm not cut out for this. This path isn't for me. I've wasted my time." Those who succeed resist this impulse. They allow time to reveal meaning. They understand that clarity often comes after endurance, not before. One wealthy entrepreneur once said that confidence is not the absence of failure, but the memory of surviving it. Every time you recover, something inside you strengthens. You realize that disappointment did not end you, that uncertainty did not erase you. And with each recovery, fear loses some of its authority. So the third insight is this: do not run from failure, and do not romanticize it either. Respect it, learn from it. Let it refine you without reducing you. Use it as a lens, not a label. And here is the thought to leave you with: failure only has the power you give it. When you choose learning over self-blame, every fall becomes a step forward, and every setback becomes a silent architect of the strength you'll need next. The fourth lesson is about relationships, and it is often underestimated, even by those chasing success. The quality of your life will never rise above the quality of your relationships. Many people think wealth is built in isolation, as if success is a solo achievement. But when you listen to those who have sustained success over decades, they speak less about deals and more about people who they trusted, who they learned from, and who they chose to walk with. At a psychological level, human beings are deeply shaped by their environment. The conversations you repeatedly engage in, the attitudes you are surrounded by, and the standards that are normalized around you quietly shape your thinking. Billionaires understand this early. They are intentional about proximity, not in a transactional sense, but in an ethical one. They choose to be around people who challenge them, not just those who agree with them. Comfort feels good, but growth rarely happens there. One of the most difficult but necessary skills to develop is discernment. Not everyone who smiles at you wishes you well, and not everyone who disagrees with you is your enemy. Wise individuals learn to separate honesty from flattery, loyalty from convenience. They value people who tell them the truth, even when it is uncomfortable, because truth is what protects you from blind spots. Ego surrounds itself with applause. Wisdom surrounds itself with counsel. There is also a profound lesson in how successful people treat others when there is nothing to gain. Character reveals itself in imbalance of power, how you speak to those who cannot benefit you, how you respond when someone makes a mistake, how you handle disagreement without humiliation. Many wealthy individuals say their reputations opened more doors than their money ever did. Trust compounds just like capital, but once broken, it is painfully slow to rebuild. From a philosophical standpoint, relationships are mirrors. They reflect your emotional maturity, your patience, and your empathy. If you consistently experience conflict, betrayal, or isolation, it is worth asking not just who others are, but who you are becoming in the process. This is not about self-blame, but self-awareness. Healthy relationships require emotional regulation, the ability to pause, to listen, and to respond rather than react. There is also a spiritual dimension to this lesson. Many teachings remind us that success devoid of compassion is hollow. Wealth that distances you from people rather than connecting you to them becomes a source of loneliness. That is why some of the most successful individuals prioritize family, mentorship, and service. They understand that being respected in public but disconnected in private is a quiet form of poverty. Boundaries play a crucial role here. Valuing relationships does not mean pleasing everyone. In fact, it often means disappointing people who are used to your availability. Long-term thinkers set boundaries to protect their values and energy. They say no with kindness, not guilt. They understand that resentment grows where boundaries are absent. Another overlooked aspect is the ability to forgive. In long journeys, people will fail you, intentionally or unintentionally. Holding on to resentment may feel like strength, but it slowly corrodes clarity. Forgiveness is not about excusing behavior. It is about releasing yourself from emotional weight that hinders forward movement. Many billionaires credit their peace of mind to learning when to let go rather than when to hold on. Mentorship also deserves mention. No one builds wisdom alone. Those who seek guidance accelerate their growth, not because mentors give them answers, but because they help them ask better questions. At the same time, giving mentorship grounds success, teaching others reinforces humility and perspective. It reminds you that your journey is part of something larger than yourself. So the fourth insight is this: choose people with the same care you choose your goal. Invest in trust, integrity, and mutual growth. Protect your character as fiercely as you protect your ambitions. And here is the reflection to carry forward. Success may elevate your status, but relationships determine your fulfillment. Build bridges, not just achievements, and you will never be truly poor, no matter what the numbers say. The fifth lesson is about understanding the true meaning of wealth, and this is where many journeys quietly reach their turning point. After the pursuit, after the building, after the sacrifices, a realization often emerges. Money is a tool, not an identity. When people confuse the two, they end up endlessly chasing more, not because they need it, but because they are trying to fill something money was never designed to fill. Psychologically, this confusion is dangerous. When your sense of worth is tied to net worth, peace becomes conditional. A good year makes you confident. A bad year makes you question yourself. Those who reach lasting success learn to anchor their identity elsewhere, in values, faith, service, or contribution. Once identity is stable, money returns to its rightful place, a means, not a measure. Many billionaires speak openly about the moment they realized enough is not a number, but a mindset. Without this realization, no amount will ever satisfy. Desire expands to match income, and contentment is always postponed to the next milestone. With this realization, clarity appears. You begin to ask better questions. How much do I actually need? What kind of life do I want to live? What responsibility comes with what I've been given? From a philosophical lens, this lesson challenges the assumption that accumulation equals fulfillment. History is full of individuals who had everything materially, yet lived with anxiety and emptiness. Fulfillment comes from meaning, not possession. When money is aligned with meaning, it becomes powerful. When it is disconnected from meaning, it becomes a burden that demands constant attention and protection. There is also a strong ethical dimension here. Wealth amplifies intention. In the hands of someone guided by conscience, it becomes a force for stability, opportunity, and good. In the absence of conscience, it becomes destructive not only to others, but to the person holding it. This is why many successful individuals eventually turn toward philanthropy, mentorship, or community building. Not for recognition, but because contribution restores balance. It reconnects success to humanity. Another subtle insight is freedom. True wealth is not about buying luxury. It is about buying choice. The choice to walk away from environments that compromise your values. The choice to spend time with family. The choice to say no to work that drains your soul. Ironically, those who use money to impress others often feel the least free, trapped by appearances and expectations. Spiritually, many traditions remind us that we are stewards, not owners. What we have is entrusted, not possessed permanently. This perspective humbles success and softens loss. It encourages gratitude rather than entitlement, generosity rather than hoarding. When wealth is viewed as a trust, it is handled with care, wisdom, and restraint. This lesson also reframes ambition. Wanting more is not wrong. What matters is why you want more and what you are willing to sacrifice for it. If the pursuit costs your health, your relationships, or your integrity, the price is too high. Sustainable success honors balance. It allows growth without erosion. Many people reach the end of their striving only to realize they neglected the very things that give life its richness. Those who learn this lesson earlier live with fewer regrets. They still work hard, but they do not worship the outcome. They enjoy the journey without being enslaved by it. So the fifth insight is this: Define wealth on your own terms before the world defines it for you. Decide what enough means while you are still building, not after you are exhausted. And leave with this reflection: money can expand your life, but only meaning can complete it. When your wealth serves your values instead of replacing them, success finally feels like success. The sixth lesson is perhaps the most quietly powerful of all. Understand that legacy is built in small, unseen moments, not just in grand achievements. Many people think legacy is something you worry about at the end of life, after success has been secured. In reality, legacy is being shaped every single day by how you live when no one is applauding you. Psychologically, this lesson requires a shift from outcome-based thinking to impact-based thinking. Outcomes impress people for a moment. Impact changes people for a lifetime. Billionaires who reflect deeply often say they are remembered less for what they owned and more for how they made others feel, whether they were fair, whether they listened, whether they lifted you. Others, when they had the chance. These things do not show up on balance sheets, but they echo far longer than any transaction. There is a profound humility in this understanding. It reminds you that your life is not just about you. Every interaction leaves a trace. The words you choose, the patience you show, the integrity you protect in difficult moments, all of it quietly shapes the culture around you. You may never see the full result of your influence, and that is precisely the point. Legacy is not about control, it is about contribution. From a philosophical perspective, this lesson confronts the illusion of permanence. Titles fade, companies evolve or disappear. Even fortunes shift hands. What remains are principles passed on, standards modeled, and values lived consistently. When you act with honesty in small matters, you normalize honesty. When you show restraint in power, you redefine leadership. This is how civilizations are shaped, not by speeches alone, but by examples repeated. There is also an ethical responsibility embedded here. Success grants visibility, whether you want it or not. People watch how you handle stress, disagreement, and failure. Do you become arrogant or more grounded? Do you hoard credit or share it? Billionaires who understand legacy become more careful, not more careless, with their behavior. They know influence multiplies consequences. Spiritually, this lesson aligns with the idea that deeds outlive desires. What you consistently do becomes who you are remembered as. That is why intention matters, but action matters more. Quiet acts of kindness, fairness in negotiation, patience in teaching, these build a reputation that outlives material success. Many who reach the top discover that being admired is less fulfilling than being trusted. Another dimension of legacy is succession. Wise individuals invest in people, not just systems. They teach others to think, not just to follow. They create environments where values can survive even in their absence. This requires generosity of knowledge and humility of ego. A fragile ego wants to be irreplaceable. A secure one wants to be unnecessary. This lesson also invites reflection on time. When you view life through the lens of legacy, urgency changes. You stop chasing applause and start choosing alignment. You become more patient, more intentional, more selective. You ask not only, will this work, but what does this teach, and who does this help? Many people wait for a perfect moment to live meaningfully, but there is no such moment. Meaning is practiced in the ordinary, how you treat colleagues, how you speak to family, how you handle pressure. Legacy is not written later. It is written now, line by line, decision by decision. So the sixth insight is this: live in a way that your values would recognize you even if your name were forgotten. Let your influence be felt more than it is announced. And here is the reflection to carry with you. Long after achievements fade, the character you lived by will still be speaking. Make sure it is saying something worth remembering.